Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Masterclass on productive failure. I'm always happy to be with the teachers and read. Some days, well, that's life. You can't have everything your way. So we will share everything here. And I hope you'll get everything right because I'm working from an iPad. I don't have access to my studio today. So we will see what we can do best under the circumstances. Manisha, do you get the screen?
Yes, it's visible.
Oh, great. So we're right here. So we were talking about failing to transfer. Yeah. And the challenge for us as productive failure is that why do we fail to transfer? Now we are teachers and we face this call every day. I had a very interesting conversation this morning, and I mentioned Ms. Jha's conversation with me even in our Sunbeam Masterclass WhatsApp conversation. Why do we fail to transfer and why every child is different? What do we need to do? These are the challenges we face every day in our class. So I have a physical book with me in case you want to find out. It's page 27. We're at the bottom. On the screen, we're also page 27, but we're on the left side. Suppose you are asked to remember two lists of words, each comprising 36 randomly chosen 2 to 3 syllable words from a word bank. I will repeat so that you can register. Suppose you are asked to remember two lists of words, each comprising 36 random chosen 2 or 3 syllable words from a word bank. The first list is to be learned sitting 20 feet underwater in full diving gear, with the words being narrated one by one through a recorded tape. This is the wet learning condition. The second list is to be learned sitting on dry land, also via a recorded tape. This is the dry learning condition. After a break, you are then asked to recall as many words as possible from each list, except that the recall takes place both underwater, wet recall, and on land, dry recall. So when I'm trying to help you with your research, with your study, with your designing a productive failure, look at the way the experiments are done. And my message to all of you is post Paul Sir's conversation with you all last week. We all have to learn along with you. We're also learning how to attempt doing these challenging experiments. Teachers as such, we are beautiful in hypothesis. We are beautiful in sharing information. But to convert information to actionable knowledge, we have not been brought up. The system has not taught us like that. So you look at your exams, look at your curriculum, look at the pedagogy. You have a practical and you have a theory. And your practical and theory are two different subjects. I really don't know, is that the best way to study? Ideally, practical theory should be one living subject. And when you have to write a paper, you have to research, you have to collect data, you have to have discrete series over a period of time. And here's an example. Therefore, in figure 1.4, which will follow, there were some words that were learned and recalled underwater, the WW words. So, which is the wet words. Others were learned and recalled on dry land, the DD words. And then there were words that were learned underwater and recalled on land. So look at the hypothesis. The WD words are learned on land and recalled underwater, the DW words. What would the pattern of recall look like? To this answer, in 1975, D.R. Gordon and A.D. Badley reported on an experiment similar to the scenario described above. They found that the people had the best recall from the words learned on land. and recalled on land. This might seem intuitive, no surprises here. What was intriguing was people had just as good a recall for words learned and recalled underwater. Statistically speaking, there was no difference between the two lists set of words. That is, people performed equally well in recalling WW and DD words. But for words learned underwater and recalled on land or vice versa, people had the worst recall. It seemed that when the learning and testing contexts are the same, recall was better. When they are different, recall suffered. So, learning and testing, these are the two challenges you face. A simple yet delightful creative demonstration that context matters. We seem to encode not just the words, but also the context in which we learn. Now, this is an important part for you. And that's precisely why we are doing this challenging exercise of productive failure together. 6 months back, when this book was published in October, and I heard of it, I had taken a call that we will attempt this as a masterclass. In the meanwhile, I ended up visiting Singapore to meet the author. I had a long conversation with him, and we discussed how we would do it. So, which meant that I had to go to a context and learn from him. And that's what I'm highlighting. We seem to encode not just the words, but also the context in which they were learned. So, the author of the book, was able to explain so many stories to me when I met him. We had an hour-long conversation. And that's where I got reinforced that, yes, we must use this to improve our teaching and learning community. And why why are we all together? We are here simply to ensure that we can design these kind of experiments and improve the teaching and learning in our system. Given that recall in the same context was better, it means that context always provides cues for us to remember the words. That's how learning moves. So you do reference to the context. Now here's the chart. So you can take a screenshot. I'll take a moment. Take a screenshot of this. Learning by recall matrix of words, figure 1.4. This is an interesting screenshot for you to think about it later. So learning is on the left axis or on the left side, and the top is recall, which means on the x-axis, we are looking at recall, and the y-axis, we are looking at learned. So what happens? WW words, you can see how they were created. WD words, how they were created, DW and DD. And DD is where you see high recall and learning. Context, therefore, gets encoded together with whatever we're trying to learn, and then serves as a cue for retrieving that information. Which is why, if learning and testing are in different contexts, we perform worse than if they are in the same or similar context. This pattern of effects is not just from one study. In 2001, Stephen Smith and Edward Vella examined 75 different studies on the effect of context on memory. And they found a reliable effect that our memories are indeed context dependent. So yes, now you are designing your exercises on productive failure. It's not as simple as you sitting down, writing a story and writing a comment and sending it. And I'm repeating yet again, it requires creating a context. It requires setting a timeline. It requires collecting data. It requires presenting data, and it requires deducing data. So Tanuja has beautifully outlined a study, which the hypothesis, I've had a conversation with her. And if someone is with her at Varuna, she's in the middle school, we will work together to try and get this out as our first productive failure study at the earliest. And maybe that will give you all a stepping stone. So good luck for you. And then let me tell you, context matters. And if context matters, then it must influence transfer. Transfer, by definition, is the idea of using what we learned in one context and applying it in another context, which may be similar or different than the one we learned in. So this is the challenge. What we learn in classroom, how do we apply to real life? Here, context is to be interpreted broadly. Where you learn and how you learn are both part of the context. The experiment above demonstrated that where you learn matters. The place itself gets learned and coupled with what you are learning. For example, dancers learn routines in a studio, associating moves with familiar cues in the learning environment. On a new stage, absent from cues, performance can falter, which is why rehearsing on stage becomes critical for enhancing memory and live performances. Similarly, a basketball player who practices free throws in a certain gym might find that they perform better in that same gym because they have associated the visual cues of the space with the muscle movements of shooting. Where we learn, the place matters. Let's mark this out. So where we learn, the place matters. Context also means practices. That is how we learn what we learn. We can learn new content, say math or science, from a lecture by listening and taking notes individually. Or we can learn by engaging in problem solving, working both individually and collaboratively. The two sets of practices are different. Likewise, the practice within which we learn a new language, say formal classroom versus cultural immersion, are different and will therefore influence how well we learn and transfer the new language. How we learn, the practice we engage matters. Context also means, this is important. Context also means practices. That is how we learn what we learn. We can learn new content, say maths or science, from a lecture by listening. I'm repeating this for you and taking notes individually. Or we can learn by engaging in problem solving, working both individually and collaboratively. Think about it. The two sets practices are different. Likewise, the practices within which we learn a new language, say formal classroom versus cultural immersion, are different and will therefore influence how well we learn and transfer the new language. How we learn and practice is another one. How we learn, the practice we engage in matters. However, the kinds of practices we engage in while learning need not be and are often not the same as the practices we need to use the knowledge in. And when this happens, we find it difficult to transfer what we have learned in new places and practices. Hence, the frequent lament amongst employers that even though students learn a lot of knowledge and skills throughout their schooling years, they find it difficult to apply them in the authentic complexities of work and life. The late neurosurgeon Paul Kalinithi beautifully illustrated this problem of transfer to be reflected upon his experience of transitioning from being a medical student to a practicing doctor. So teachers, you are all medical students and you're going to become practicing doctors. So by the time you finish Dr. Manu's Kapur's book, you all should be able to add a doctor to your name. It was becoming clear that learning to be a doctor in practice was going to be very different education from being a medical student in the classroom. Reading books and answering multiple choice questions bore little resemblance to taking action. With its concomitant responsibility, I stood still, unsure when to act and what to do. Paul Kalinithi, when breath becomes air. Not surprisingly, a similar dynamic plays out for other domains as well. Although students learn substantial amounts of formal knowledge in their subject area, they find it difficult or are often unable to apply this knowledge. Or as Paul Kalinithi describes, they are unsure when to act or what to do. Why does this happen? The landmark article in 1989, John Seeley Brown, Alan Collins, and Paul Dugwait put forth what is perhaps the most compelling case for how our cognition and learning, memory, knowledge, skills get tied to the context, place, and practices in which they are learned. This is called situated cognition. The simple idea that what you are learning, where you are learning, and how you are learning become inextricably linked. When you learn something new, it is not just the facts or skills themselves that stick in your brain, it is also the whole experience. That's what we do at the masterclass. Where you are, what is around you, and what you're doing at that time. So later on, when you are in a similar situation, it can trigger those memories and make it easier to recall what you learned. Your brain links what you are learning with the environment and practices. This linking between learning and context is more generally true as well. If you learn to cook a new dish while listening to a specific type of music, say Italian opera, you might find that hearing opera again makes you think of the recipe steps and even the tastes and smells of the dish you prepared. Or if you wore a specific perfume or cologne during a memorable summer vacation where you learned to surf, smelling that fragrance again might bring you memories of surfing, even if you are nowhere near the beach. This is why pilots trained in simulators that mimic the cockpit of an airplane. The context is being in an actual cockpit can enhance the recall of the procedures and checks learned during simulation. This is also why sometimes studying in the same place where you take a test can help you remember better, but also make it harder if the learning and testing places are different. You face these challenges when you send students out to examination centers. One can also think of situated cognition as the home advantage effect, borrowed from the sporting world, where teams tend to perform better at home than when they are away. When a team practices and plays regularly in their home stadium, they become deeply familiar with many aspects of the environment. The feel of the playing surface, the way the ball bounces, the sounds of the specific crowd, the layout of the facilities, and even the routine they follow in their own locker room. Their bodies and minds form a connection between these contextual elements and their playing strategies and skills. During home games, all these familiar cues can help trigger the athlete's memories and instincts, improving their performance. Conversely, when teams play away games, they are in an unfamiliar environment with different sights, sounds, and routines, and the unfamiliarity can disrupt their concentration and increase stress levels, potentially leading to poorer performance compared to when they are at home, surrounded by familiar contexts. In all these scenarios, the environmental and situational factors during the learning process are not just background detail. They are an integral parts of the learning experience that can significantly influence memory recall and skill execution. In our cognition and learning are indeed situated, we can derive an important hypothesis for transfer. Now the secret, how you can transfer and why you are failing to transfer. Hear this out. When there is an overlap in alignment between the context of learning and the context of use or application of that learning, then transfer is easier. If not, transfer is harder. The overlap and alignment comes a home advantage, so to speak. One of the clearest and most intuitive examples supporting the hypothesis comes from how we learn words and languages in schools. Miller and Gildia's 1987 study cast doubt on traditional vocabulary teaching methods that treat knowing words and using them as two separate processes. That meanings of words could be learned independently of the context of their use. They pointed out that in schools, students often learn new words through dictionary definitions and a handful of example sentences. This practice is clearly quite different from how people typically learn language outside the classroom, which is through regular conversation and exposure to language in context. I will narrate a personal experience here. We were never allowed to use Wren and Martin grammar book in our school days, but we were made to read a lot many books. I grew up in a school where the class teacher had the privilege of walking to a bookstore and selecting the book in multiple copies, which we would read in term in school. So that's how we learned how to converse by exposure to language in context. According to situated learning hypothesis, one would expect formal language learning to be situated in school practices of learning through dictionaries and examples, and therefore not transfer well to authentic contexts of use. Whereas language learning outside of school would be situated in authentic practice of daily life and transfer well to such contexts, which are the real contexts of use. True enough, as Miller and Gildia argued, this real world practice of language learning is incredibly efficient, as evidenced by the fact that by the time someone is 17 years old, they usually know on average about 80,000 words, having acquired them at a remarkable rate of about 13 words per day over the years. In stark contrast, school based vocabulary lessons that rely on abstract definitions and decontextualized sentences are slow and ineffective. There is simply not enough time in school to teach more than a few hundred words a year. Worse, many of the words do not end up being useful to students as they do not use them meaningfully. For example, students tend to make errors like, me and my parents correlate because without them, I wouldn't be here. When what they mean to say is that they are related to their parents, or I was meticulous about falling off the cliff. When what they really mean to say is that they were very careful, or the redress for getting well when you are sick is to stay in bed. When what they really mean to say is not redress but remedy, and so on. Miller and Gildia's study always reminds me of my physics teacher in high school, who exhibited exactly such patterns. To be fair, he was a good physics teacher, but English was neither his native language nor his strongest suit, happens to so many of us. For example, it would not be unusual for him to come to class and say, open the windows so that the atmosphere can come in. Or when he found us loitering in the corridor, he would admonish us by saying, stop rotating about the corridor and go to class. And many other hilarious uses of the English vocabulary. Perhaps he too had relied heavily on dictionary learning and not as much as meaningful contextual practices. Indeed, in 2023 meta-analysis of Stuart Webb, Takumi Uchira, and Akifumi Yanagiwasa examined 24 studies in second language vocabulary learning and showed that when vocabulary learned was situated in meaningful context, it had strong effects on learning and transfer, precisely as predicted by the theory of situated cognition. So situated cognition was that example where we did DDWD, the wet and dry method, and then learning to transfer. That's what happens, which was proved how it really happens. All this calls into question how we design learning environments. Let us consider an easy and intuitive example first. How would you teach someone how to ride a bicycle? Much like children learning formal definitions of words first, would you first give them all the theory about why a bicycle is constructed the way it is, the forces and the dynamics behind it before getting them to cycle? Or much like learning words in the authentic context, you would get them onto the bicycle and have them try to cycle, get a feel of it, fall and get up and try again. And as they engage in this, give them tips and explanations at the right moments. You would always choose the latter. Now consider the same, but this time replace riding a bicycle with learning math or science, or For what matter, most subjects we learn in school, is learning something more abstract, such as math or science, really that different from learning how to ride a bicycle? The situated nature of our cognition and learning would suggest that the underlying dynamics of both kinds of learning are not that different. And yet, how do we teach? We decouple knowledge about mathematics from the practice of mathematics, knowledge about science from the practice of science, and so on. In doing so, the practices within which students learn mathematics or science or language are not aligned with practices within which they might be expected to use that very knowledge. And because of that, students find it difficult to apply or transfer what they have learned. Situating learning in decontextualized practices of schooling is a big reason why we fail to transfer. So we are today here literally questioning the methodology of schooling. We are looking at ways ahead. Any solution of learning should address the three problems of learning. In the remainder of this book, we will see how productive failure does that and more. I promise you, after this book, you will become a better teacher. Key takeaways as to why we fail to transfer. First, we fail to remember because of low retrieval strength. However, forgetting can be good because retrieval practice is an effective way to increase both storage and retrieval. Second, we fail to understand because as novices, we do not have the prior knowledge to see and connect with new knowledge. Therefore, when learning something new, we should first prepare to be prepared to see and not go straight into teaching or telling. Three, we fail to transfer because learning is situated in a context which we learn, which means that if the context of learning and context of use or transfer differ a lot, then transfer becomes hard. So now coming to the real action point. I will first put a bookmark here. Can someone take a screenshot? Manisha, can you take a screenshot? This solution, productive failure. Let me see if I can attempt this.
Yes, sir. I can do that.
Yeah, I also got a screenshot. I learned it just now. I found a method on the iPad where I'm working on. So I'm going to go back and let me see how I can try and get this graphic in a particular way that I can give it to you in one shot. Okay, now do you see the graphic in screen in one shot? Key takeaways? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now I come back from portrait to landscape. So you have this graphic with you, and hopefully some of you have taken a screenshot, but don't worry, I'll share the screenshot. We've all been excited to do assignments. What's the hurry? Just chill. Now the time is coming. When you look at these key takeaways, this is where you will design your productive failure. And if you are doing an assignment, you are progressing, please keep upgrading yourself and improving on your paper and assignment. We expect you to do 5 assignments in matter of 12 months, what we call papers or presentations. You can do a podcast, you can do a video, you can do a PowerPoint, but remember one thing, it has to be backed by research, whatever you explain. It has to be backed by data. It has to be over a period of time. It has to be designed. It has to be executed. It has to be assessed. An assessment must have evidence. So attempt, and please feel free to connect with me. I am there 24/7. Manisha will tell you no matter what I am doing in life. Let me give you an example just now. I have 2 emergencies at this moment, at this very minute, with my mother and my wife, both in 2 locations undergoing major challenges. But as a teacher like you, I thought I must go to my class because this is my duty and I'm organizing things around me so that everything's executed. Now, that's how you handle productive failure. You can never plan your day in a class. You can never plan your lesson. It never goes the way you want it to go. That is how you design for productive failure. If this will not work, this will work. If this will not work, this will work. And you will do it in such a way so that no child left gets left behind. So for us, At the masterclass, the effort is no teacher gets left behind, but that only happens when the teacher believes in the coach or the teacher and connects with the coach or the teacher. You are making attempts. Manisha is there 24/7. I am there 24/7. We will ensure that this concept of productive failure enters every classroom of yours as the year goes by. You may not get 5 assignments, but you may get that one good assignment and submission, which will make you feel full of pride and honor. Good luck for that. So, what I'm going to do now, let me just see if I can get myself into the mode of the class. Yeah, so I come back into Zoom, I stop screen share. Yeah, I learned how to do it. Another productive advantage of me. Ravi Prakashji, thank you. I have some messages in chats. Let me see. Yes, there are a lot of good evenings. Good evening. Okay, just Jai Hind. Good, good. Good to hear you all. I will not read more. We have put a bookmark. Now we will read next week. And next week, we are going to go a step further and address the solution. How do you design productive failure? We will start working on that. We are a long way to go. So don't be in a hurry. We have just finished chapter 1 of the book physically. My request to you people, please try and get copies of the book. It's essential because I don't think you can actually achieve much without the book. It's important that we get the book. It's important that we go by and ensure that you are able to understand what productive failure is. Believe me, this is just going to be the only book you'll ever need to become a good teacher. And yes, some of us are here from different language and different mediums. If you still need further help, we are always there. Thank you, Ila. Thank you for your good wishes. This is God's will that we have to be here at this time with you, and we have to do things. We have a war on, we have an environment which is very much trying to disrupt our lives. Your resilience as a teacher, your strength as a teacher, and I have had so many conversations with so many of you at times. You have so many challenges. It's God's blessing how you can handle them and come to your classroom. And I really appreciate every teacher, and I bow down to every teacher who is there to teach in this world. It's the God's gift to be a teacher. You are gifted. So to get your sequence of productive failure right, believe me, once you get this productive failure concept clear, nothing can stop you from becoming an even better teacher. And we will do whatever it takes for every happy teacher, for the last teacher standing. And that's why this Saturday masterclass is open and free for all. It doesn't even say that you need a GSA membership to register for a masterclass. And we have registered over 1,000 people. Yes, 100 some come, great. 200 can come, great. 500 can come, even greater. And we will continue. I'm open to any Q&A. You want to raise a hand, we will help you talk to us. Please do that. We have 5 minutes. I'll be happy to do that. Thank you, Noreen, for that message. We are so delighted to welcome the Blossoms School of Aligarh. Noreen, my message to Midhat sir that he took a long time, देर आए दुरुस्त आए, ऐसे बोलते हैं ना, प्लीज मेरा मैसेज मिदत सर को दे देना, देर आए दुरुस्त आए, परंतु आपने कुछ खोया नहीं, सब कुछ पाया. And God bless you all. We will definitely do a lot more together. We currently have with us 27 schools and institutions, from which 21 are regular schools and 6 are special projects. We work in a huge diverse environment. And for us, like I said, no teacher should be left behind. So we are not here for the schools who already have resources. We are here for the schools who don't have the resources. We are here for someone who wants to become a teacher. We are here for someone who is a teacher and wants to become a better teacher. So we are here for everyone. Manisha ma'am, would you like to come in for a conversation or ask a question on behalf of anyone? I'm more than happy to answer that.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. As per the question is, this must be there in all of our minds where to get the book. The book is available online, Productive Failure by Manu Kapur. So we all can order our copies online. The book is very good and is going to be connected with all of us. So please buy the book and read it. As per our Teachers Academy certification program, if you are completing some assignments, to name it 5 assignments, then we'll be giving you a certificate which you can take it as a masterclass certification program. So in case you want to know more about it, please ping me or drop in a message on my email. I'll get back to you on this.
Thank you, Manisha, for highlighting these points. I want to mention three things. Masterclass is free and open for everyone. The book is available on Amazon. Net price is 1800 some rupees. Please get it from there. Now there's a beautiful thing that you can do. If you donate 3000 rupees to the Learning Forward India Foundation, we gift you a book. We gift you a lifelong subscription of our Good Schools of India journal, and we register you for a certified masterclass. A certified masterclass means you should have paid a 3000 rupee annual fee, which goes to Learning Forward. We are an affiliate of Learning Forward, which is perhaps the largest body of professional teachers in the world. It operates out of Texas in USA. It operates across borders. Their whole philosophy is that continuous professional development makes a better teacher. And there is nothing known as board curriculum when it comes to becoming a good teacher. A good teacher doesn't have to be worried about board curriculum pedagogy. A good teacher can design productive failure. And that's exactly what we are trying to do with you. So please get the book. It's available on Amazon if you want to spend 1826. If you want to invest 3000 for your career, please sign up for the masterclass. Sunbeam has signed a large number of teachers, about 47 of them. They are eligible for the masterclass certification program. So if you're not signed up or paid, you will not be eligible for a certificate. In the Sunbeam class, we have one or two people who still need to please pay. If you want to apply for certification, you will have to register. Kindly deposit the 3000 rupees. And for anyone else who's outside the system, it is very easy. Just type diljito.com, D-I-L, jito.com. It will open to the Teachers Academy page. On the Teachers Academy page, use the join button and register. It gives you three good things after that. You get direct access to a coach. You can WhatsApp, converse, talk to your coach, schedule a phone call. You are eligible for the Masterclass certification program. And more than anything else, you get a mentor. For 3000 rupees, you will attend Teachers Academy Masterclass for the whole year, 52 sessions. You will get help to do your assignments, 5 of them. And you will understand what is productive failure. On that note, thank you. It's been a wonderful evening. I have lived every moment here with the 100 plus people who joined us. Thank you for the joy you shared. Thank you for what you do for yourself, not for others. And you're investing your time. You're trying to use what we call reading, reflection, and building relationships as your strengths. And believe you in me, reading, reflection, relationships, these are magical. And you can do the magic. I have only one thing I've not been able to do in my life. I never got a chance to go to a classroom and teach. But I try to make up by that by trying to learn to teach every week, every day, 3 to 4 times a week. And hopefully someday I will become a better teacher learning from our productive failures. On that note, thank you so much. And I would like to end here, but I'll still take a moment and pause if you want to ask something. Thank you for your messages coming in. Anyone wants to talk, just put your hand up. We'll unmute you. We can do that very, very easily. We can allow anyone to talk. I have the full attendee list with me. I can find you there. We can help you talk. That's not a challenge at all. Meenakshi Prasad, you've been here quietly. Would you like to add something as a panelist today?
Yeah, this chapter on this particular chapter about learning, based on context and all, it's very, it's something that even I have felt in life. So, like recalling something becomes easier when it is connected to a memory or something that we have done. So it's a great thing. And I mean, while teaching children, very often we don't think of that. Okay, pleasant memories, nice memories, and all those things will help them recall. Okay, how we teach them will help them recall. But while while planning a lessons, we normally don't think about those things. But now, when I'm training my teachers, I think I'll tell them this is what they need to do. So that's it.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Before you go, you brought up a very interesting thing, teacher training. So the master class will give us 100 teacher trainers in the country minimum. That's our aspiration. As all of you will learn, you will become teachers to teach others. And that's how the relay race goes on. We all come here for a purpose. Our purpose is to become better. And each of us becomes better when we respect each other and help each other. So each one teach one. All the best. God bless you and thank you so much. We close the room here, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. Bye-bye.